All right, I got one more for you. Over the past couple of months, the nativism that's defined an already tribalistic internet has really worked to outdo itself. That's saying a lot in the year of Trump and ICE, but what's become more interesting as time has gone on this year is the way nativism has become this catch-all to paper over the cracks of the culture war. It's always been sloppy, don't get me wrong, right? Blame immigrants or the freeloading poor or fucking California because inflation is too high, or you don't want to release the Epstein. We already talked about this, right? But as Trump has held on to this excuse, right, public opinion actually has shifted due to how obviously fucked up ICE and his administration's actions have been. Public opinion polling has shown an erosion in support for Trump's deportation policies, and the OBBB made it worse. And personalities like Joe Rogan have called out how insane this all really feels. This has resulted in a few big cultural flashpoints in media within politics surrounding nativism, right? With the two over the last few weeks being at the forefront. Zohran Mamdani's win in candidacy and Superman. Strange bedfellows, I know, but I think these are two really important cultural moments because they both show pretty explicitly the cracks in the wall of the strategy bigots love and how that wall is caving in on itself. And let's start with Superman. James Gunn's Superman reboot has been a cinema canon event for a while now, all right? Especially with the recent middling quality and fatigue around superhero movies, and also because of the elitism and sneering around superhero movies in general from fucking critics. But beside all of the bullshit like, are superheroes really cinema and all that pedantic shit, the buzz around this movie has been astronomical. One major issue leading up to the release, though, was the Snyder versus Gunn debate, right? Or the Snyderverse fans versus the new DC Universe fans. I don't know what you want to fucking call it. You've heard these rumblings. It's probably really fucking hard to miss. The debate is its own kind of proxy for the woke versus unwoke debate that dominates every fucking area of our lives for some reason, right? A giant culture war metastatization about media and diversity and all of that shit. And we continue to see it more frequently, especially since a lot of media was co-opted, like The Last Jedi or The Last of Us 2, not Sonic the Hedgehog, because these fucking culture warriors don't want to fuck with furries. You want to? Go pick a fight with one. 2 words. Rule 34. Let me know how that goes for you. But the big moment that blew up everything this time was an interview James Gunn recently did, where he described Superman as an immigrant story, to which a certain contingent of people who will never fucking work in film lost their entire fucking shit. Why does all this art have to be political all of the time? Why can't we just have movies that were just things that happened and had no deeper meaning or context and just existed in a vacuum? You know, like a blank sheet of paper or bland toast. Yeah, I remember when movies weren't all political, like On the Waterfront, or Gone with the Wind, or Saving Private Ryan, or fucking the majority of the greatest films that defined cinema for a century. Remember that, you fucking pussies? Look, I said it in my video where I reviewed Superman, right? When people say they don't want politics in movies, the good faith argument of that is that they don't want didactic movies to hammer you over the head with the message at the expense of storytelling, right? Those absolutely exist even with the right politics. That is true. Also, there are some people who are just fucking butthurt about what the film is trying to say, and are just, oh, I want to throw a tantrum like a little bitch. And if your problem with the politics of Superman is that it's about immigrants, and you feel that the argument that Superman is about an illegal immigrant is an untrue argument, and that he's just, I really heard this, an orphan, you're objectively fucking stupid and wrong. I would reassess why so many people think you're an insufferable idiot. For decades, the immigrant aspect of Superman has been a key aspect of his appeal, all right? Multiple famous storylines and relationships within Superman are defined by him being a Kryptonian on Earth, mistrusted by people like Lex Luthor, whose whole fucking existence is like, why is this person who's not from Earth on Earth with all this power? That makes me mad, specifically because of his origin, right? Okay, but also the fact that Superman is acting to make his world a better place, that pisses off Lex. That is someone who's not from here, who feels human and is doing things for humans with the great power that he's getting. It's the fucking central point of this story. There are so many explorations from the source material about Superman's heritage juxtaposed with his life on Earth, like The Man Who Has Everything, an amazing story by Alan Moore, where Superman gets trapped living in a fantasy world of what would have happened if Krypton had never exploded, or what would have happened if Superman landed in the Soviet Union, like in Superman Red Son. Couldn't possibly be political there, just a fun story with no political undertones about communism. I think when people dismiss culture warriors who say, why are you bringing politics into this, they often use the phrase, all art is political, and that is true to a certain extent. All art has context and a rational element with real life stakes. Like, if you don't have that, then the stories don't fucking work. And often those social issues coincide with current political, social climate issues. But that's not the argument a lot of these bad faith culture warriors are having, right? They say, why are you making things political? But what they really mean is, why are you not on my team? What does that say about me if this hero is not on my team? Why are you promoting things that are not my team? Are you saying my team isn't welcome here? You want to fucking fight? You think you're better than me? Oleami Alurin has a great video about this, where she talks about this new concept called virtue mirroring, where the media you watch has to represent your views and your exact perspective all the time in order to be valid. But look, virtue mirroring in general flattens the perspective of conversation in the art of film or comic books itself. Sometimes you don't agree with the character or the message or the villains or some aspect of this movie, but you don't have to agree with all aspects of these characters. Think about Batman, right? The Dark Knight is one of the greatest pieces of superhero media ever made, right? And there's plenty of prescient scenes that reference current events that were going on at the time. Probably the most well-known was near the end of The Dark Knight. Spoilers if you haven't seen it, but it's been like a long fucking time. Batman installs this giant surveillance system using everybody's phones to find the Joker, who they have designated as a terrorist. This movie came out during a time where we were still really freaking out about the fucking Patriot Act and the war on terror. And the movie does two things. A, Batman uses this surveillance system to great effect to find and stop the Joker. It is an effective, fucking crazy surveillance system where he's able to fight and disarm all these terrorists and save a bunch of people, right? Batman's methods at the same time are seen as similarly extreme and boundary crossing and immoral, like the Joker's. They make reference to this fact during the movie several times. And I do not agree with Batman in that film, right? And that film is supposed to ask you a very complicated question, right? When fighting somebody psychotic and evil, do you break your morality to fight him? This is not an easy answer. And those complicated and sometimes objectionable answers with your politics, right, are some of the best parts of comic books. They constantly give you these difficult choices and these interesting social situations that are commentaries on dynamics of power that you have to reconcile. And it makes these characters richer, and it makes this whole tapestry much more engaging. And also, this is in line with the character of Batman. So for the life of me, I cannot understand how you can possibly imagine yourself as a fan of Superman if you reject the defining element of him in like every fucking piece of media for the last 50 fucking years. Superman is an illegal immigrant, right? He was an immigrant in the 1978 version. He was an illegal immigrant in Smallville. He was an illegal immigrant in the animated series. Obviously, one of the best representations of the character. He's been an illegal immigrant in the comic book since its inception. He's fought the US government. He's fought corporate American businessmen who believe in the humanity of America first. That's this main fucking villain, right? If you have a problem with the party everybody is having around Superman, leave the fucking party. It's been going on for nearly a century. This aspect of the culture war is an enormous tactic to cut off people from engaging in reasonable conversations with the media that they consume. They frame something like Superman being an immigrant as meaning your lifestyle or existence is at odds with that immigrant. And I know that we don't want to coddle bigots, right? But you have to understand, because everybody is not immune to propaganda, right? Attacking things from this angle can turn someone who reasonably would agree and empathize with the plight and the life of immigrants and the story of immigrants and how they came to this country and trying to find a better life, right? It can turn that person into somebody who actively objects against them. I am almost positive you know somebody in your life who suddenly lost all of their morals and went down a rabbit hole. This kind of shit is what does that to them. The arguments around this film are structured in such a way that if you call somebody ridiculous for that argument, oh, well, now you're just threatening their access to a social circle and their standing as a person. And that's how racists and fascists build their coalitions. I say all that to say this has worked for The Last Jedi, right? The Last of Us 2, the Barbie movie, and so many other cultural touch points. But surprisingly and optimistically, it is failing with Superman because A, the movie is fucking gas. B, it comes at a time, right, where cynicism is genuinely exhausting and the movie is exhilarating and optimistic in all the ways people have been craving. And C, you guys are fucking mad about Superman being nice? What the fuck? The same way that bigots said that diversity in pronouns and identity politics overcomplicate media, after a grueling number of months with their guys' callousness at the front of American politics, they are now seen as overcomplicating a piece of media that feels earnest and optimistic and inspiring. It's the same way people who said, go woke, go broke, right? That whole fucking thing. They would say that about certain pieces of media, and then that piece of media would make a whole bunch of fucking money because the demographic they're targeting wouldn't even care about that piece of media anyway. Which brings me to my next point. This culture war of nativism versus diversity and inclusion and all that kind of shit is a war of attrition. It's not a both sides issue when it comes to racism, nativism, and bigotry. Those are just fucking wrong, right? It has always been fucking wrong. But influencership and self-serving activism is a both sides issue in the age of social media. Propaganda loves a good crash out story. Hey, look, this person is trying to overcomplicate your lives. So the issue that they care about is actually some bullshit that you need to avoid, even if it's something that's important and should be engaged with. Gay rights in the mid-aughts got the boost it needed when the message became simply, why are you spending so much energy hating the people who just want to be in love? After years of the right wing in this country building this complicated network of a crazy gay agenda and traditional marriage in a world where you don't know what's going to exist. What if they just make bestiality legal? If you watch the L Word, will you turn into a lesbian or re-up your HBO subscription? You don't know. It's important to recognize because the pendulum always swings back and forth. And right now it's swinging in the direction of progressivism. People are understanding the threats towards immigrants that comes with Trumpism from people like Stephen Miller. They're seeing it directly affect them with the cuts to their fucking social benefits, right? Feeding ICE as well as the tax code of the rich. With this, momentum will probably build like it did in the mid-2000s. In the next few years will get us to a better place. But if you truly want to fight tribalism and nativism, you need to be prepared to simplify the cultural standard into a universal cultural truth. And this is where I'm going to start talking about Zohran Mamdani. Weeks after Zohran Mamdani's seismic victory, the media narratives and rifts between the party elites and fear-mongering have been laid bare. It is blatantly obvious how egregious the Islamophobic attacks and conflations have become. And ironically, you also have specific people on the left as well trying to say he's actually a functional Zionist suddenly. A lot of this is intellectually dishonest at every level, right? It's the same playbook. No, but actually he's not a real leftist. You know, this is a real leftist. This isn't cinema. This isn't a leftist. This isn't Superman. This is America. Woo! This is the culture war. It's built that so if you believe in certain issues, suddenly you no longer believe in those issues. You believe in your team, right? Your team communist or MAGA or vote blue no matter who. I know a lot of people who criticize the Democratic Party, rightfully so, for being feckless and shitty, but then do certain fucked up things that the Democratic Party does that they criticize, but it's okay because it's their team. Well, here is the good news about the situation. All that propaganda shit on Zohran ain't working on him either. In a series of new polls you've probably seen, Mamdani is taking Cuomo and Adams and Sliwa to the fucking cleaners. He's in a pretty strong position in this race, even with the attacks, and a large majority of Americans are agreeing with his policies. Oh, what happened to policies on the left will never work on a national scale, guys? Because again, his goal was to emphasize affordability, right? He's not talking about theory. He's talking about actionable steps to help people. That is attractive and builds incentive structures. And not only that, while a lot of people have been focused on Mamdani's relationship with people like Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Gillibrand, the language used by these senators when referring to Mamdani and the shifts within that language are significant, because as time goes on, they've continued to actually hedge their stances. Hakeem Jeffries did an interview with MSNBC the other day, and look, he's not waving a Zohran flag, okay? But he cedes ground with certain language in that interview, language that politicians die on a fucking hill for. Like, they will not say certain things. He cedes that ground, right? Specifically to signal acceptance or a path to good standing between the two. Because he can read the fucking tea leaves, all right? Because the Islamophobia in the media is so fucking obvious. Do you know how crazy it is that Gillibrand apologized and the New York Times got called out for that fucking crazy hit piece? I'm sorry, I'm still absolutely surprised that it happened, right? I've lived dealing with Islamophobia for my whole fucking life, and I still can't believe that any pushback is happening. The goal of the culture war is to create noise and make you feel like your personal ideals are a threat of disappearing. That's a fundamental emotional fear and hits more than just danger to your well-being and self. It hits at a danger towards your place in society. And the thing is, many times we think the best way to combat it is to start dropping theory books on how the change is good and you're an idiot if you don't fucking get it. And again, I'm not dissing leftists or even those theories. Obviously, right? Change is good and people should want to move towards it because it benefits more people, right? But if you feel that, right, like that I'm dissing leftists by saying that, that's also a culture war reaction, by the way. Theory books are fine. This is a universal issue for all political activists spectrum-wide. Tribalism loses when people know they've been invited to the party and the people who are trying to break everyone up are just fucking up the party, right? You want to go see Superman fly and punch Lex Luthor with the John Williams theme on guitar? And somebody's going, oh, it's too woke. Why do you want to watch this shit? Bro, shut the fuck up. You're fucking up the party. Zohran Mamdani is saying you should be able to afford rent and shit costs too much. And these guys are talking about how America forgot 9/11 because he's there and he eats with his... Shut the fuck up, Charlie. Shut the fuck up. You're fucking up the party. Go home. That's insane, by the way. The people who believe that viewpoint on the internet aren't representative of Americans, because if they were, Zohran would have lost. Superman wouldn't break every fucking box office record that it just did. Now, I'm not going to lie. That whole you're at the party feeling and vibe, sometimes bad faith actors use that same tactic to attack earnest causes, right? Respecting people's gender identity, trying to show that rap is music, or explaining climate change. A lot of people get scared and are like, you're fucking up the party. I don't want to think about this. But you can make those issues salient and less difficult to digest when you incentivize them, right? Hey, it's exhausting to constantly hover over gay people. Nothing's happening. They're nice. Hey, the planet's getting hotter. You know what? Why don't you try to do this? It'll help and you'll feel better because we're all doing it as a group activity. Oh, suddenly you're not fucking up the party. You're creating a community and a circle within the party. Hey, here's GNX. Please don't listen to the E in Freestyle. Please don't. Please don't. I'm even just breaking the metaphor here. Don't listen to that. You have better things to do on the internet today. If you see the discourse online about Superman or about Zohran, it's easy to get discouraged until you realize that miserable assholes will always be miserable assholes, right? And there are times you just got to deal with that. But one way of dealing with it is building up the momentum, getting out and watching people fly sometimes, right? When it means something earnest, that's the party I want to be at, right? Invite people. Let me know what you think in the comments. And that's our show. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. It's a big boy. I hope you like it. And anyway, my name is Tabani. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all soon. Let's go.